Commanders and Chargers on Sunday afternoon. Can Washington slow down Justin Herbert and make a statement at home? Katie Caldwell, Jeff Lloyd back here with you. Jeff, the big story in this one is the return of Jayden Daniels. So I want to start there. What will we see from him on Sunday coming off that injury?
That's, I think, the thing that everybody is kind of, has their eyes on.
Yep.
Jaden Daniels is good enough to return to action, but does that mean we are getting 100% of Jaden Daniels?
Hmm.
That's the question, because if he's limited, with his mobility, that is certainly not something that is going to necessarily aid Washington. Well, the Chargers right now are kind of struggling without, of course, their top pass rusher, and they're just not a great pass rushing unit overall. So that is something that may not hurt Washington overall, but there is, I mean, just things that Jaden Daniels does, I mean, the spread, running the spread read, things that Jaden Daniels can normally do is just something where Washington is going to feel like they're limited and maybe don't want to risk him, you
Hmm.
know, this early coming back from injury, understanding it's only week 5 and obviously you got 13 more weeks to go. But him coming back certainly provides a much needed spark for Washington, and it's been such a short time for Jaden Daniels in Washington, and he literally, feels like he'll be the face of the franchise well into the 2030s to this point already.
Hmm.
So for Washington, it's probably something this team desperately needs. It kind of really seems like he's kind of the lightning rod overall, just for the way that franchise feels about how they can go into any game at any time and feel that they are competitive enough to win. Jaden Daniels is certainly a huge, huge part of that.
Yeah.
And it was a slow start last year as a rookie, though, and this was the time where it really started to pick up for him. So hopefully, with him coming back to this lineup, they get what they need. Because Philadelphia wins this week, Washington doesn't. All of a sudden, you have a big, big gap there already in the NFC East, and Washington could find themselves just playing for a while earlier than expected.
Yep, that is very true. And you were right about the pass rush. The Chargers, their run defense, they were exposed against the Giants. So they rushed 42 times Sunday for 161 yards. So how did they slow down this run game? Because you have Jaden Daniels. We will see how healthy he is. But they also have Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt. They have Bill. Could we see a big Bill game here? I just love that nickname.
I would certainly, I mean, right, it's just every time it comes out, it's a bit. Like, you think it's not real, but actually it is real. Um, I mean, look, you're trying to slowly bring your quarterback in. And look, if it was, something where it was other than the knee, you know what I'm saying? Or whatever, you're back, let's go. We're gonna go full tilt, but certainly you want to do your best to protect your investment. And knowing that, certainly this same defense had issues stopping the run last week. It's certainly a part of what Washington wants to do. So Bill certainly should get some run, but obviously you want to do that to hopefully open up obviously all areas of the field for Jaden Daniels, who I'm sure is itching to go. And,
Mhm.
arm is probably really juiced up right now, seeing as he probably hasn't thrown a meaningful pass in about 3 weeks. So, he's gonna be really, you know, fired up. But the thing with that, though, is do you come into it, trying to do a little bit too much? They're trying to get a 700-yard game in only a 4-quarter game. So Daniels is gonna have to show a little bit more reserve here. Obviously, let the game come to him as opposed to try to chasing it and, doing more than he's capable of. And, for the Chargers, it's interesting. I mean, this is a team that, lost a game last week that, in my opinion, still to this point is just an inexcusable game. The
Mhm.
New York Giants were not a good team. And even still, you lost to a New York Giant team with a rookie quarterback in a debut. Certainly wasn't Herbert's best day. If you're Washington, I mean, you're licking your chops because when people look at this at any point, leading up to the season, Chargers, Commanders, game could go either way. Those are the games that ultimately define your season, is the games that everyone looks at and says, "Man, this
Mhm.
is real tough to figure out." Well, those games you lose, then all of a sudden now you're trying to, basically, hopefully you sweep the Eagles, something of that nature, and you don't have to kind of put that pressure on yourself.
One thing that concerns me about Jaden Daniels airing it out, though, man, they are dealing with so many injuries at receiver. So Terry McLaurin, Debo Samuel, Noah Brown, all didn't practice on Wednesday. So how would they adjust for these injuries in the receiver room?
Well, I think ideally you hope, you're getting at least 2 of the 3. I think McLaren, of course, is, the most important to all of this.
Yeah.
And Washington, I think, is gonna be really, cautious. with this because you think if you have Jayden Daniels back, well, Jayden Daniels is our guy. He should be able to, overcome a game or two, which made last week, a little bit more difficult when you didn't have the two of them. But if
Yeah.
Jayden Daniels is truly your franchise guy, he'd be able to, work with, the lesser cast, so to speak, than, the top cast in Terry McLaren. That's, you want to be regarded as one of the best in the game. Nobody's going to feel bad that you're missing best option. So if you're Washington, you're hoping, at least I got about 2 out of 3 of them, because then you're talking about playing wide receivers 4, 5, and 6. And, obviously, when you're getting to the talent pool that low end on the depth chart, those
Yeah.
guys don't have the athletic ability. They're not running the routes at the speed the, higher up guys on the depth chart are. So for, Washington, ideally, you want to be full strength. Nobody, and it's only 5, nobody in the league is full strength or even close to it right now.
Yeah.
But if you're Washington, if your choices are, I get Jayden Daniels back or I get Terry McLaurin back, 10 out of 10, you're going to hope you're getting Jayden Daniels back.
Quick pause. If you haven't subscribed to the BetCanada YouTube channel, you can do so below. It's free and it helps support our channel so we can keep bringing you NFL and NHL content. Now, back to the show. Yeah, that is very true. So the Chargers offensive line, I do have some concern there. So Joe Alt left the game last week with a high ankle sprain. They are painfully thin at tackle right now. So how do they work around this? Because you want Justin Herbert to have time. It also felt like last week their run game really started to get going. Like what we talked about all offseason, they're going to run the damn ball. It felt like we saw a really big Omari and Hampton game. What do they do with this offensive line?
Well, that's one of the more difficult things, because and, everybody keep in mind that they're down to tackle 3 and 4, and what
That's what I
was one of the
mean.
biggest strength yeah, one of the biggest strengths of this Los Angeles Chargers teams was the offensive line, was the offensive tackle play. And now without both of them, certainly it caused some big, big time issues. And so the question is, what do you trust your offensive line more with? Ideally, you should trust them more in run blocking than you're going to trust them, obviously, in pass blocking.
Hmm.
But if you're Washington, you know the deal, you know the scattering report, you know who's there, who's not there, and you just start walking guys up. So, Herbert, and I think, the advantage for this is, hopefully you can at least run with enough success that Washington has to play it honestly. And then you can start working to the play action game. And you have Johnson, of course, you have McConkey, of course, you have Keenan Allen, of course.
Hmm.
And so if they can run it just enough to keep them honest, that should be enough, for the Chargers. But in the same respect, though, you're hoping, you get adequate play, certainly out of the offensive tackles that you're going to have on the field.
Yeah.
Herbert is your franchise. You can't have him taking more hits, this early in the season. The things, for the Chargers certainly are in an awkward spot because as much promise as I had for this team, most of it was contingent on the offense and the success I thought they were going to have. So they're going to have to find a way to cover the holes, which are massive, gaping holes currently. But you got to do best to cover them. Otherwise, this team could end up kind of falling short of maybe what was, the summit of what would have been this Chargers season.
Yeah.
And you need to kind of get this one because you kind of gave away one you should have had last week.
Yeah, they definitely should have. Who wins this one? Do the Chargers go 4-1?
I think Chargers are gonna win. I do think the
I do
Chargers are gonna
too.
win. I think Washington's still rounding back into what was their 2024 mode. You tell me, they get almost everybody, Washington, back offensively, but you have to you be careful with this Charger team because they can score points and score them in a quick amount of time. It's certainly gonna depend on, what the offensive line can do to aid all that. But, also I think with a guy like Justin Herbert, and, Justin Herbert, I think, is a guy who really believes he should be in, a little bit more in the conversation of quarterbacks in the AFC, in the league overall. So an opportunity like this is, hey, I go out there, I overcome this, it'll be because of me and my guys, and it just won't
Mm,
be necessarily, about the team as well. And, Justin Herbert is a damn good quarterback. And I think that kinda gets lost because, the Chargers don't end up each and every season on the level of the Kansas Cities, the Baltimores, and Buffaloes. But the way we're looking at it, for some of that, there could be room at that table this year. Somebody might be sitting it out, if not a couple of somebodies. And I'm sure Justin Herbert, it absolutely has his eyes set on, getting his name into those conversations, which should be happening already.